We're live on video. And Aden, oh yeah, you don't need to count us in because Craig's recording this one.
Okay.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It's episode 96. Aden Richards, do you think you have the virus?
I have been exposed to someone who's been exposed to someone who's been exposed. But other than that, no, I have no reason to think that.
Right on. I was on a plane a week ago, so I could very well have it, although I feel like I would know by now.
Fair enough.
All right. And listeners, viewers, you already read it in this description. There's a guest on the line, somebody we've been looking forward to speaking with for a long time. You know him from every TI since TI5 and practically every major tournament since he burst onto the scene as Toby Wan's protege. I think that was 2014. So you know him from the Side Pole podcast. Don't confuse that with the Dota podcast, by the way. Austin Walsh, Capitalist. Welcome to the Glimpse.
Hello, I'm happy to be here. That is very true though. For your listeners, if you guys are only interested in Dota podcasts, ours is about 5% of Dota and 95% dick and poop jokes. So
love it. I think it's a valuable contribution to the scene.
You would have greatly enjoyed every meeting we've had about the Glimpse has been involved via dick butt caricature being pasted on every slide of the meeting and every media thing. Mostly by Lorton.
Aden's face, yeah.
Yeah.
Cap, do you have the virus?
No, surprisingly. I thought there was a
right?
decent I thought there was a decent chance that that some of us would get it at the summit, just because that's a grouping of people that all flew into an area and such, and we're all around each other for so long in close quarters. But
and I don't recall seeing a ton of hand sanitizer being passed around.
No. BTS is actually very good about it. They actually had food handlers, they trained their staff in food handling, and they wouldn't let us touch the food. So just to make sure there was no possible contamination there. There was hand sanitizers everywhere. You just probably didn't see it on the couch is all.
Fair enough.
But yeah. On top of that, Slacks was also sick, and Slacks did not have coronavirus, but he was definitely sick. And he actually flew in from Seattle.
It's a dangerous world out there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Seattle's real bad. And so there was just I was surprised I just didn't get regular sick from Slacks, because I had to record a DHL video with him for a whole day. And that was there was a lot of, we actually have a moment in the video where we shake hands, and we had to do the handshake 10 different times. And we had to be right across from each other while he's yelling quite a bit. And so I was very surprised I didn't walk away. My immune system must be getting better.
Oh yeah, it speaks well to your resiliency. Before we really get into this, I'm going to give our listeners a couple of quick reminders. If you're a Discord member, you would have gotten advance notice of what we were rewatching. You would have gotten the YouTube link right in the Discord. So our Discord members got a chance to rewatch this Team Secret versus Virtus Pro. I guess his VP should really be headlining this. But if you want to be a Discord member, you can go to our website, glimpsepod.com, and there's a link right at the top of the page. You can follow all of us on Twitter. Cap is at Dota Capitalist. Aden is at Omega Man Dota, and I'm at Shark Butler. And you guys already know, if you're longtime listeners, you know that Audio Engineer Jason is the only reason this show still exists. And you can show your appreciation for Audio Engineer Jason by buying a t-shirt. That'd be glimpsepod.com/merch. 100% of the proceeds go to Audio Engineer Jason. And now, welcome to the first episode of Dota Rewatchables. We are appropriating this concept from the Rewatchables podcast on the esteemed Ringer Podcast Network, parentheses now owned by Spotify. Since there's no pro Dota of consequence going on, since we've been wanting to try this idea for a little while, we decided it's the perfect time. So the point of this is we're going to look back on iconic moments in Dota history. We now have the full benefit of hindsight. And Aden, this idea has been met with, well, I would say, a lot more applause than most of our ideas.
Yes. People were very into it, and we've had lots and lots of suggestions for series. But
yeah,
not surprisingly, we decided to pick one that was between our two favorite teams.
Yeah, this one's right in our wheelhouse. So we're going to step right into it. And Cap, I'm hoping you'll tell us a little bit about what was going on behind the scenes at TI5. Now, I've heard a rumor, a pretty well substantiated rumor, that when you're casting TI, especially the main event, you basically don't know until very short notice what series you're going to be casting or if you're going to be casting at all. Am I getting that right?
Yes, that is totally true. That's changed a little bit over time, but there was, I think, TI4, they told us the whole of the group stage, and then they told us the whole of the full bracket afterwards. And then after that, it went like day to day. Like you would only know the night of, basically, of who's going to be casting next, or about halfway through the day, you would get the message about, hey, here's the schedule for the next day. So yeah, you wouldn't really know what was happening. And then it's gone back. Now we know, like, after the first day of playoffs, what everybody's casting from there on out.
Right on. And you were locked in. Blitz was locked in as your co-caster for the entirety of this tournament, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I don't think I've ever had a TI where I was mixed around with other casters.
Okay.
So I think this was, just me and Blitz the whole way through.
Very nice. On. And as far as your memories, you told us off air that basically you cast a series and then immediately forget it because you're like the Buddha. You're exactly in the moment. Do you?
Yeah, man. I'm all about living in the now. You know.
That's right.
No,
are there any memories from
is,
this tournament that stick out? TI5, that is, just a short 4.5 years ago.
Any memories from TI5? Well, that was the first TI that I did playoffs. Because TI4 I only did group stage.
Mm-hmm.
TI5, TI6 was the first time that I paneled. So this was me purely casting, I believe. This was where Blitz and I were a little bit on the come up. We weren't like the best. Like the crowd, fans really liked us for TI6. TI5, we were still kind of like on the way up.
Mm-hmm.
So we were getting a lot of momentum. I remember that. I remember this was at a time where I was still a little bit more pure in the play-by-play aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout my career, I kind of bounced around. Other than that, I remember that Secret was a team that everybody wanted to cast, you know? It was like, I mean, every secret iteration is exciting to cast because they're always like one of the best teams going into TI. So when Blitz and I got the Secret versus VP matchup, we both were pretty hyped about it. We thought this was going to be a very exciting series, and it turned out to be easily one of the best games that TI has ever had. So
right. So can you, among the casters and analysts there, like what was the feeling on Secret coming in? I mean, they just run off 4 straight LAN wins, right? Coming into this, including ESL1 Frankfurt. How, like, if you had asked around, like, how confident were people that Secret was going to the grand finals?
Yeah, people were really sure. This was one of those. This was one of those times where a team was incredibly dominant going into TI, which is kind of. I mean, I guess it's been true every year. There's always like a Secret or a VP, but I feel like this was the first year where a team really stood out, right? There was Alliance at TI3. They won a LAN just before TI3, but it was like, there's not that many LANs. A lot of people were discounting their win in, it was the China Alienware Cup, I think is what they won in China. They were one of the few foreign teams, and they swept the whole thing. And a lot of people are discounting that and such, but here there was so much evidence that Secret was the best.
Well,
you know,
they've been on top for such
so
a
many
long
lands.
time. They've been on top since February, like DAC. I mean, granted, they didn't win that DAC tournament, but they dominated the group stage of that tournament to the point where everybody, and that was like Arteezy's first stop at Secret. So yeah, I mean, this was the longest stretch of domination we had seen in Dota since that Alliance team, in my opinion.
I remember they won ESL 1 Frankfurt,
Mhm.
2015. That was the second iteration of Frankfurt, I believe, and they matched up against EG in the finals.
Yes.
And I think it wasn't very close, that finals. I just remember walking away from Frankfurt and just like, so it was just solidified. There was like, nobody can touch Secret right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
So good.
Yeah, EG won a really long game one, and then Secret wrecked them in 3 straight short games.
Yep.
No,
Yeah.
Well, and
That's right,
Aden,
yeah.
I'm expecting you to put a bow on this comment later, but it was after that ESL 1 Frankfurt. I remember an interview with Arteezy where they asked Arteezy, tell us about, the strategy going into that series. And Arteezy's like, I don't fucking know, man. We just pick heroes and it seems to work every time.
I imagine that Puppy didn't view it quite the same way.
Puppy did not. But honestly, as a huge Team Secret fan and watching them closely during that period, my recollection is closer to Arteezy's. Is like, I didn't see any rhyme or reason to what they were picking, but it always seemed to work.
Fair.
This was like the first run of like a team that could pick anything and win, right?
Yeah. Well, and Aiden, you want to contrast it with VP's run up to TI?
So this was my first year. This is when I fell in love with VP. They became my team. They just solidified from being VP and VP Polar this year, I believe. Right. So they came together, and they were good, not great. They were consistently like winning smaller tournaments. Dream League had a weird thing where they were doing sometimes as a big Dream League and sometimes a small Dream League. They won one of those, which was just like CIS. 3rd and 4th at ESL 1 Frankfurt. They were a direct invite, but like clearly one of the last direct invites. I think that everyone sort of had like I was like hoping for top 3. That was like my dream ending. When they ran into Secret, I was a little scared. I'm not gonna lie.
All right. And now I think it's time to talk about the series itself. I have struggled to answer the question, what is the story of this series? Because it starts with a resounding Team Secret victory, and then games 2 and 3, obviously not so hot. And so, you could tell a story about Puppy being stubborn as a drafter. You could tell a story about VP's evolution as a team. Aiden, how do you think about the story of this series?
I think the story of the series is the question, like whether you get 2 cores to farm. That's my story. In game 1, G silencers, G did not get any at all, and it was all on Illidan. In game 2, Arteezy got shut down, and it was all on S4. And in game 3, S4 got shut down, and it was all on Arteezy. And in all 3 of those situations, one guy couldn't hold it. Here's my story.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Right.
Yeah, so going a little deeper, so in that game 1, you got Puppy and Kuro. They're setting up a bunch of kills for S4, making space for Arteezy because he's on that TA, farming those ancients. Meanwhile, VP, I feel like they were just taking ill-advised fights time after time in the mid game, and that game could have been a lot different if VP had chosen not to engage at a couple of those times. But Secret did kind of overwhelm them in the end, and actually it was only like 12-13 minutes when they're diving high ground. So I guess that was, like I said, a resounding Secret victory. But yeah, S4 game 2, number 1 in net worth all the way through the mid game. Arteezy like 6 deaths or something on that Luna. And then Secret game 3 has insanely farmed Shadow Fiend and cannot hold anybody in place for them to hit. Basically their only disable was Vacuum. Guys, I'm a Darkseer player. Vacuum has a super long cooldown. It cannot be your initiation spell.
It's true.
Cap, what is the story of this series?
To be honest with you, I don't really remember. Like, I'm looking back through the picks, and I don't really remember the series very well. Being able to go back through the highlights, I remember Game 3 because that is something that obviously is going to stick with you some. There's something about what I remember about this team really well was that Illidan was Illidan was something else, man. As a carry, he was very unique. There was like Illidan put up some extremely high numbers when it came to CS and GPM and net worth. Like he broke some records. And part of the reason this guy always pushed the limits when it came to where he was farming on the map. This guy would always just farm so aggressively. And then you've got Lil, who this was probably his time. Who it was probably another pretty unique player. He had a unique player pool. His visage was something to really be feared, which something Secret didn't series after two, because Lil's visage always went up. It was always a monster to be dealt with, and like in hindsight, that would have been one of the heroes that I would have taken away from VP, because they're like teams at this time, they all had like different playstyles, and I would say that nobody really understood what the right way to play Dota is. And so at this point in time, teams were more unique and less adaptable. And so you had to kind of pick at what they were best at. And for me, I just remember VP, what they were best at was being able to get Illidan would get a lot of farm if he was unpunished. And Lil, if you gave him a little bit of space to work with, would go off on the 4th position role, and he would be very high impact. And then I remember VP was just like, they were aggressive. That is something that, like, they were one of those teams who solidified that CIS, like, we're going to run at you. We're, like, even on an international stage, we're going to run at you. We're going to 5-man around a lot. We're going to smoke aggressively and just run into you as many times as possible.
Sure. So, Lorton, Cap just touched on. Do you want to go to Apex Mountain?
Yeah, we can jump straight to the Apex Mountain. The point of this question is, was this the absolute peak for any player in this series? And so the first one I want to mention is this was not S4's peak, obviously. S4's peak, in my opinion, was winning TI3. But we've been criticizing S4 in recent years because he's fallen off a little bit. And so I loved going back to watch the series because it was really fun to watch when S4, when he was just like a terrifying playmaker. That game 2, Queen of Pain, I mean, he was everywhere.
Sure.
I think that I think you're right that this was S4 in like one of his heydays. This was a revered mid. He was always a top 3 mid at this point in time. Like any list you would ever put, like nowadays you always have that list. There's always going to be like Miracle there, for example. Like Thompson right now is always going to be in that top 3 list, right? So this was S4, like that TI3 to TI. Not sure how much past TI like 5 you can go. Maybe you can go up to TI 6, but like after that, especially like moving into the off lane and such, a lot of people just like assumed it would work out for him because that was his play style, right? Aggressive mid playmakers. Get him mid puck. Get him, those kind of heroes that will be able to run around the map and do things, and he's going to look really good at it. And so people assumed that offlane he was just going to go back into that same kind of position, but he never really got to the same level that he had before.
Sure. I think it would be safe to say that this was nobody else on Secret's peak tournament, especially given that they were running. Kuroki obviously has won TI since then. Arteezy, he played really well, I guess, in game 3, but it's hard to say this was his peak series. But let's talk about VP here. You already mentioned Lil. Yeah. Is it safe to say, is this peak Lil?
No, this was not peak Lil. Peak Lil was Kiev Major 2017. What?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I guess that was the beginning of the end for him, wasn't it?
It's a different Lil. I mean, I just associate peak Lil with Visage.
It's true.
I mean, is it safe to say that Lil is the best Visage player of all time? Cap, would you go there?
Right up there.
I mean, the thing is, like, I don't have a strong memory for Dota. So when somebody stands out, like, especially this amount of time, like, I've watched so much Dota. If somebody in a hero, like, combination stands out to me, then they had to be one of the best, right? Like, they just had to be. There's no way that VP like I just instantly think of Lil Visage. There's no way that I think of that without him being incredibly impactful. So I think he's easily top 3.
Sure.
Like his impact in clutch scenarios probably makes him the best, right? Because if you put like let's take another good example. You take 33, right? Really good Visage player. But has he been able to perform under the pressure of TI with stakes like this and have the same impact with Visage, or has he been able to play Visage at all? Probably not. I don't think so. But I know Lil has, you know.
Right.
Well, and Lil Visage might have single-handedly won game 2 and game 3. I mean, there were some plays that wouldn't have happened if he hadn't stunned with the bird at just the right time.
Yeah, I think what was noticeable to me was that he missed the stun once, and I don't think it was really his fault. It's just that he couldn't get it there in time, and Quap blinked away. But he missed the stun once, and I was shocked that S4 got away. I was like, that's not how this works. He hits them. Okay, so are you gonna?
All right, I'll agree. Peak Lil.
Okay. All right. I have one other option here. DK Phobos. Is this peak DK Phobos? And I asked that because I think he was great. Although it's funny because he was terrible in game 1. One of the I don't remember exactly what you said, but there was a moment where he misses a skewer RP combo. And you say something along the lines of, well, I don't think even if he'd hit that, it would have saved them, but he really did miss it. So I'm along those lines. And I was like, yeah, that's not great. But
brutal.
I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, like, what's DK? I mean, is this DK, peak DK Phobos? Does he ever get anywhere else? I mean,
he was on those team spirits for all of 2017 and 18. That won a total of like $10,000 between them. Yeah, I think this is very safe to say peak DK Phobos.
I'll agree just simply for the fact that I actually remember I remember a significant that I had because this was at a point where I was transitioning into off lane. I was doing the thing where I was trying to get my MMR high so it was more of a brand for me. And so I transitioned into a core role because I was always a support player. And so I played off lane. And this was at a point where I was beginning to get some authority. And Blitz would sometimes ask me, like, who are my best offlaners right now? And I remember VP was like the team that DK Phobos stood out for the wrong reason. Where it was like the rest of VP, they were all really good, right? We were talking about peak Lil. Okay. G, this is probably one of G's highlights. This is probably one of his last highlights.
Yeah,
but
I think it's after
TI4, TI3, he was really good, but this G, like, he could turn up at times, and I think he did in this series. And FNG was just a smart captain. He was sometimes outdrafting teams that were probably supposed to be much better than them.
Right.
So it's like everybody on that team had a role. Everyone kind of stood out in a way. And then there was DK Phobos, who I think you could count on some misplays from him. I don't think like he could ever really win off like Lil or G or Illidan would. So, but
he got. I mean, that's sort of my thing. Is he was not that. He was the. If he gave you a good game, VP was in a good position, right? Because you could count on everybody else. And I say, like, he wasn't. I had him listed in another category as like the obvious hero of the tournament, and that was sort of a hard thing. But like, what gave it away was like simply, Loda was saying like everybody did it, and he's like, and the Shaker made big plays, So I was like, that's good enough phrase, like, recognize it that. But if Loda gives you the props, I feel like he deserves a little bit of there.
Okay,
so, yeah.
Peak Lil, peak DK Phobos. All right, I see core silencer written here, Aden.
It's not a player, but do you remember, Cap? And this is a general. Do you remember core silencer being played
with the
since
Shadow
Illidan? Since Illidan. I mean, it must have been done. It must have been done, but like I tried to think of a single example of another player playing it.
It's
not
few
not
and
in
between.
matches of this profile and not for very long, right? Like it always went out of favor. Whenever people experimented with it, it would go out of favor so quickly.
Yeah.
But Aiden, just to confirm, this was after the core silencer renaissance that started with Slasher and the Shadow Blade build. This is after that, right?
God, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure this was after.
Okay. I'm not gonna claim an expertise on Slasher's way.
should have asked Eric Lunderscoff on this podcast.
Yes. Sure.
All right.
This is probably perfect for Illidan, though, the silencer, just because in some ways it was an aggressive carry that could fight well. And Illidan had a way of finding farm. Maybe he was ahead of his time in farming patterns. Again, I remember he always aggressively pushed. And I don't know if he thought that the trade-off was worth it. Like the movement of forcing people over to kill him. And in turn, that creates some space or something, but he just would always push the lane farther than anybody else, and therefore put himself in a precarious position. But if he doesn't get ganked, he's just always ahead of you.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, Aiden, I'd like to turn to missed opportunities and turning points. So obviously, Secret wins game 1. So tell us about what are the moments you saw where, let's see, Secret could have turned it around, or when VP just kind of put the pedal to the metal and finished this thing off?
In game 2 or in game 3? We go game 3?
Game 2 or 3.
Game 2 or 3. Well, I think in game 3. This is my snarky answer: is Puppy could have banned Lena or Earthshaker, either one after they dominated them in game 2. But I thought the turning point in game 3 might have been when Secret smoked to Roche, and we're just barely too late at about 30 minutes in, and they lost the fight. It's one of those things. Kuroki jumped into the Roche pit as G was picking up the Aegis, and it's so hard. I mean, when you're ganking into Roche, or you're approaching Roche to try and contest it, and you're hoping that they're killing Roche, and then versus when they've just finished it and they're already moving away from that bad positioning. If you time that poorly, I mean, how many times have you seen a team just be slightly too late and then gets killed when the Roshing team turns around? Cap, I feel like that's one of those what are they called? A cliche of Dota. It's you come in too late and it just goes horribly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that this was also a Storm game, right? So
yes.
Even if, let's say, the same thing happens, but Kuro is able to jump in, grabs the Aegis. Well, I don't think G dies in that team fight, but what they get accomplished with that Aegis could be massive. There was a team fight that happens, not long after, where obviously VP wants to use that Aegis, and they're an aggressive team, so they're going to force it kind of no matter where the fight's going to be at. They're going to take it to you, and G's able to play with that kind of freedom of just knowing he has a second life and just basically instantly winning the fight for you. I mean, this is the way the Storm Spirit worked with Bloodstone and Aegis, because he just had so much mana regen. He could do so much with that first jump, and he could just kind of zip around, constantly hitting people, completely disrupting the team fight, maybe killing the back line, maybe just focusing down a core, and then from there it was impossible to take him down a second time because you'd already been, and nobody really played with buybacks like they do now. The buyback meta was very different.
It was different because that was still when, if you bought back and won a fight, you didn't get there's still a gold penalty, right?
Yeah, it was a 60% gold penalty.
I want to look this up. But
no, you're right about that.
You're right.
That was in response to TI3 Alliance, because TI3 Alliance used buybacks really well. Then they nerfed buyback really hard, and it wasn't until much later that they gave you full gold again.
Right. That was. They nerfed it after the sniper meta.
Oh, interesting.
The sniper jug. You remember the 6.83, the ho ho ha ha? Then they nerfed it after that because people were playing too late, and sniper was just dying and then buying back and getting 6 kills, and nice. it was that. But this was 4 months after that. which would explain why it was very much being treated differently. Yeah. But I'll give you a second little a little thing that I thought was a real turning point. And this is the kind of thing, the little thing that I think gets overlooked a lot because there's no reason to think that it's definitely like why Secret lost. So at 6:30 in the third game, S4 nearly survives a gank from a shaker fissure into Lena stun into Storm Spirit dive, but he dies and Storm Spirit gets out with like, I don't know, probably 20 HP, right? It's like, and then he respawns, goes bottom to try and gank, and dies immediately to the Dro.
Yeah.
And just like kind of lucky. And I just thought that was turning point because that was the moment where all of a sudden you realized that Queen of Pain wasn't going to have a game. I think you mentioned it a couple of times. You were maybe it was you or Blitz mentioned like like that Queen of Pain. You have to be like ahead, like you like especially at that time. I feel like Queen she's a little more flexible now. At least maybe the last couple of years. I feel like Dota's gotten a little because with talents. I feel like there's more ways to like build a hero to like matter. But back then I felt like heroes were so much one dimensional.
Yeah, you got to level 18 and that was it.
Yeah,
you got some like stats after that, but there was a lot less items you could get for the late game, right? There was for Storm Spirits there was Bloodstone, but for traditional intelligence cores there was like Sheepstick. Right. That was the one that like everybody would get. There just wasn't the same kind of damage options.
Yeah, there wasn't like a Bloodthorn that gave you like damage and attack speed and
on top of that, your spells your spells were if it says it does 600 damage, it does 600 damage.
Yep,
that's
true.
That doesn't change no matter how much intelligence you get, right? So Clop and Puck were like very, very. They were two intelligence cores that were mainstays for the first like 4 or 5 years of Dota 2, and. It was very much that meta of like the two position. You are a semi carry building space for your carry, and that's
right. And yeah, very different from now.
All right, Aiden, do you want to do funniest moment or most rewatchable moment now?
Let's do most rewatchable.
Cool. Okay, so I had a couple of nominations. I saw you had a couple of nominations too. I'll throw this in as a token nomination. I do not expect it to win. Secret go 4 for 1. This is in game 1. They dive high ground at 12 minutes. I was obviously delighted by that sequence.
Yes, but it's
extremely rewatchable.
Sure,
a little early in the game for probably your most rewatchable moment of the series. Maybe this should be a funniest moment instead. After game 2, Illidan, Lil had a huge game on that Visage. Illidan offers Lil a low 5, and Lil just like winds up and slaps the shit out of him. I rewatched that one several times, so by definition, highly rewatchable moment.
Nice. I'll throw one in here. So, game 2, there's a middle fight at 33-30. There are 7 deaths and the Aegis is lost. So 8 total deaths, 4 on each team. So VP ends up winning the fight, but only by virtue of the Aegis. And both teams initiated separately. There was a DK Phobos dunk on RTZ. Meanwhile, Puppy's going somewhere else and jumping with the black hole. I had to watch the fight about 3 times, and I'm still only about 50% sure of what happened. So I don't know. I mean,
to me, honestly, like a fight like that is less rewatchable, and so my honest pick for the most rewatchable moment is the game deciding fight in game 3. So Secret, they have a miraculous hold at the top lane. They trade 4 for 1, but then there's like this engagement near the Roche pit where VP blows up Puppy, but on the other side of the fight, Zai and S4 hit the vacuum wall scream combo, but then DK Phobos comes right back in and counters with the Echo Slam. Reasonably easy to follow, and also like beautifully executed from both teams, and VP being the stronger team at the moment won that fight. So for me, that was it. I
mean, I enjoyed that also as a VP fan, not gonna lie. This actually leads me, Cap, to a question here. So, you obviously casted this, and I'm I was listening to you and watching closely, and I actually didn't notice any mistakes. But like oftentimes when a caster's like, like in a big team, they make a mistake about what happened. They get something wrong, right? Do you usually, so when you do that, do you usually notice you've gotten it wrong? And if you do you ever do you ever have to like just squash the like, wait, no, what actually happened? I got that, like, going back, like trying to revise what you said. And I guess how do you train yourself to do it? Because I swear if I ever casted a game, I would make one mistake in like the third minute and then try and spend a minute explaining what actually happened.
Oh yeah. This was at a time where my confidence in my casting was probably a little bit lower. And so I remember it was really important for me to be able to have clean execution because I was more prone to fucking up and not being able to laugh about it. Because that is one of the, so if you listen to someone like OD Pixel does a really good job of it. Toby does a pretty good job of it too. When they screw up, they'll lean into it. Whether it's tripping over your words or miscalling, both of those can have the same effect, which is your brain just, if you recognize it, your brain just kind of puts everything on hold. It pumps the brakes and is like, wait, no, you messed that up. You need to correct that, or you need to think about it, or and so you just ruin the train of thought that you have, and therefore ruin the flow of commentating. Nowadays, I'm a lot better at just being able to, if it happens, laugh about it. But this was a time where I needed to get really clean play-by-play in team fights, and I needed to be able to call everything accurately. And I probably only did that because I was grinding so much at that time. So I wouldn't have noticed it at the time, but I was just casting so much at Join Dota. Blitz and I were doing a lot of late NA stuff, and there was just, I remember Join Dota was just like back to back, like Toby in the morning, me in the afternoon, and at night, and it was just nonstop. So that was probably a small benefit of just working that much.
Watching the series did remind me of what I like so much about Blitz as an analyst, and this is not going to surprise you in the least, Cap, but the way Blitz, he's not at full volume. It's like he's not quite whispering in your ear, but it's like he's talking to you as a friend. It's like that tone, and he's explaining the game to you. A game that you, by the way, understand very well, but he's explaining the game to you as though you're his friend who doesn't know quite as much about Dota as you do. And that tone combined with his knowledge level, to me, it was perfection as an analyst, especially at that tournament.
Yeah, I think that Blitz, what people may not know about Blitz is that Blitz is actually, he's an extrovert, but he doesn't do well in crowds. So he is very good. He's like one of the most charismatic people I know in like one-on-one or small groups environments. He's like one of those people who's just the life of a party sort of deal. And the sad thing is like, as great as a commentator he's even better at all of these things, jokes, etc. Off camera, because he's uncomfortable with it. Right? He's uncomfortable being on camera. First of all, he's uncomfortable talking in crowds. He's uncomfortable with just like public speech in general. And he's yeah, so that was something that like he really had. So a lot of our commentary duo is structured towards, and this is something that we both worked on together in our own way, was that I would try and make Blitz feel comfortable commentating together and just kind of like block out the noise in a way, block out like social media, block out the potential like hate that you get being a commentator, block out, even sometimes the crowd, and just try and help him focus on just the two of us being together. And so I would do things like, I always gave him a hug or something and try to amp him up a little bit right before we went live. We would sometimes, like, I would set him up sometimes to have little jokes, sometimes at my expense, so he could feel more comfortable. And then, Blitz on his side, like he worked with me to like he just kind of showed me another level of the game, help teach me some things about Dota. Obviously, like I'm a really good player. I was like 6K at that time, but there's still that pro level of knowledge that pub players just don't know. Nowadays, it's a lot more open, and pub players do have these kind of sort of insights a lot more at ready, I guess, just because it's become common knowledge. But TI5 was really the start of like these ideas of Dota that only the pro teams had, and so you needed to be able to be taught these things or study an exceptional amount. And to be honest, like because there's 10 people in a game, you don't understand what is going through people's heads. There's so many variables that it's a little hard to be able to find that, even if you just nonstop read through games and watch replays and such. So Blitz was my connection there, and he really taught me a lot about the professional side of thinking about how to move on the map. And that is you want to link that back to rewatchable moments. There's a team fight at 39 minutes. And this is one of the first times where a team really demonstrates the importance of smoking onto high grounds, VP smoke onto a high ground. And they have vision of certain heroes, but they don't leave their high ground until they find the perfect initiation, which is being able to kill the Dazzle.
Right. This is when they circle around up through the dire second jungle behind T2. Almost in the mid lane.
G's like cutting down trees just to be able to like get better vision and stuff. Right. Like that was a concept that like people didn't necessarily employ. It was a very clear difference between the tier 1 and tier 2 teams and how they utilize their smokes. Nowadays, even your common pubs, everyone knows to like ward up on a high ground. Everyone will just sit there on the high ground, wait for somebody to screw up on positioning. But this was TI5 was the first era of these ideas really coming into play.
Very nice. Yeah.
Right, and Secret, a very good team, got caught by that very move.
Yeah.
Right. So, Lorton, do you want to take a segue here? Because I think this is a perfect segue. So that fight had my nomination for, well, one of the 9 nominations for the most passionate casting moment from by Capitalist or Blitz. Okay, so that fight ends with you yelling, "It's RTZ against." Well, I can't even do it. It's RTZ against the world as they're down like that. So that's one of my nominations. I think Lorton's got a couple more here.
I mean, the other one from Cap that I had was in game 1 when VP takes a pretty good fight where Illidan is on Medusa, he casts Stone Gaze, and Cap's just like, "Look into my eyes." I love that.
It's
I
try not to repeat lines, but I've repeated that line a number of times. So it's probably one of the first times I've ever used it. But I try real hard not to use that because I feel like that's a mainstay of Toby. Toby's really good. That Thief in the Night, he uses that line all the time, and it's a great line. It's a Toby line, and it works into his brand really nicely. But for whatever reason, I never wanted to do that, which was a flaw I shouldn't have never thought that way. I think it's actually a strength to a commentator you need to play into those things. But that was one of the few lines that I always repeat. I really like that one for some reason.
No, it's perfect.
Okay.
And then,
well, I think we got a winner there.
Oh yeah.
Well, you can give the third one, but
sure. Yeah, I agree that we have a winner. No, but Zaya got a ridiculous double kill. He was solo against the VP tri lane. This is like in the laning phase, I think, of game 3. And Cap Cap's like 2 for 1 by Zai, and then Blitz like, "What kind of monster are you, Zai? Straight savage."
Yeah.
Let's go.
And the conspiratorial tone by Blitz, again, doing him a great service.
William is really good at the accentuating points. That's always been like his strength as the color commentator, is finding, well, first of all, it's the humor, but it's the, like, if I give a straight play-by-play, he's going to find some way to envelop that really nicely.
I randomly did I was an analyst at a basketball game when my friend is a very good play-by-play commentator and just like he just needed a warm body in the other seat. And he told me, Lorton, what I liked about doing play-by-play with you as an analyst is that you never get in my way. Like I don't notice you. He's like, and I mean that in the kindest possible way.
Really good play-by-plays have that tendency
Yeah.
to like that was that's what Toby does really well. And it's just kind of like he grew up as a solo caster, right? And like he grew up as being the voice, and there was just the other guy. So when you're casting with Toby, it's like 66%. The co-caster takes 33%. With me and Blitz, we tried to very much make that a lot more even in 50-50. And it's not bad or good one way or the other. Like it meant that our casts were less hype but more conversational, whereas Toby's have these like really great iconic moments.
Sure.
But if you get the right co-caster, it can be just as hype. Blitz is always able to reach that levels, but only at the hypest games. So this game, VP versus Secret, EG versus eHome is another one where he hit that peak. Like he could match anybody when it came to co-casting hype, but it had to be the best game because Blitz can't fake it in any sense of the word, and Blitz is not impressed by many things, so it has to be an exceptionally good game for him to be able to reach that peak. He did so again at Secret versus Mineski for TI9. He did the same there.
Cool.
Okay. While we're talking about the past, I do want to ask Aden, like, I want to give the Poor Man's Shield award for the items, hero builds, game mechanics, strategies, stuff that you had completely forgotten about because it was 5 years ago.
Right.
For me, it was the little things like not having a net worth indicator on the scoreboard.
It's really weird. Drives me nuts. So one of them we both noticed was the dire X's on the minimap. Remember when they had like the Radiant have like the circles with like kind of a point, so you know which way they're facing on the minimap, and the dire just had X's, and the X's would twirl around. And you didn't know what way it's facing. Now they're arrows. That one was awful. I like fixing that was like so great. I forgot that happened. But here's the one that I did not honestly remember. At TI5, first pick, which VP took, I think at every game, also got last pick. Do you remember when that changed, Cap? Because like I honestly forgot it happened. Was there a thing?
That's why.
I'm curious.
Maybe it changed in time for TI6.
I think you are
correct. It was either
correct.
after this TI or it was after TI6 because it's definitely been a pretty long time. But I do remember that change, and I mean, first pick was so valuable back then. Everyone just instantly, you won the coin toss, you chose first pick because why not? If there's an OP hero, then you have to ban accordingly. And if it's left out there, you get it. And then on top of that, you get last pick, which at that time was incredibly good because mid matchups were so important. And if it wasn't mid matchups, being able to get the superior carry, right? Because again, the mid matchups of like these Clops and Pucks and such, we're still kind of in that era. Like being able to get the superior mid matchup was really important. And then if failing that, like the superior carry, having just the better late game could mean a lot.
Right. Sure. All right. You want to go to our next one, which is the vice versa. What modern Dota mechanic would have broken the game? All right. And I had one suggestion here. So I think it might be our only suggestion. And this one I actually have to remember because I'm not an offlane player. In fact, Cap, you don't like when I queue roll queue, I don't pick offlane. That's the one thing I don't do. But so here is what actually drove me nuts watching this. In games 1 and 2, Zai plays Darkseer all 3 games. In games 1 and 2, he is just dirt poor for most of the game. Partially, you're up against the actual tri-lane. It's not like today's day where like the offlaner could be a third core, right? Could you backlane then? Could you lane cut? Because he doesn't try it. And like in game 1, he's up against like a Dusa and a Naga, and you think that would be like a perfect time to try and like lane pool. Like he's got 3 CS at like 10 minutes. Like, could you do it then? I literally don't know.
I think you can. I think you could have done it back then. There was a lot of I'm not like 100% about it, but I know there is for a majority of early Dota years, the offlane had abusable mechanics that were not utilized by pros or in generally just anybody. There could have been there might be reasons why. Maybe the economy was set up to a point where dying as a hero was not worth it. Over the last like 2-3 years, we've really invested in that concept that deaths don't matter. They're good deaths and bad deaths, right? So that was maybe just wasn't viewed like it was worth it to backlane, potentially die to support rotations and such. But you're right. This was a time where the off lane was the suicide lane, and that was you just had to make it work. And Zai had this wonderful moment in game 3 where he managed to, as you were talking about earlier, 1v3 and get 2 kills, killed both the supports. Like that was insanely valuable back then. This is where Ice. This is where this is a peak of Zai for sure. But this is where like players like Ice were so valuable because against the odds they could pull out kills. And it was just wow that they could do that, and incredibly valuable as an offlaner.
Yeah, I wonder what life would look. I wonder what the game would have looked like then if some team had just come into TI and like said, "We're going to backlane." Like, what would have happened? It's a really incredible what if, I think. And I have no idea what happens.
You probably would just honestly, what probably would have happened is it would have happened once. They would have snuck in backlane, and then some team would have been like, "Oh, okay. Well, we're still tri-laning, so let's just pick 2 supports that can kill the offlaner."
Fair.
And
yeah, I mean,
they'll just hunt him down. But
yeah, it was especially noticeable because like one of them was like they were not supports that were good, and like a core, none of them were good at killing him, which was like it was what made it so noticeable. I was like, why is he not there?
Yeah,
but yeah, for sure.
All right, let's go to funniest moment.
Okay. All right, why do I go first? We'll still save the one with Blitz and Cap for last.
Sure.
I want to see if you have it. So, all right, my suggestion here was I watched the post game interview, and there were 2 funny moments from it. One of them might have been intentional. One of them was unclear when it's G. Like I don't know if you know G personally, but it's unclear to me whether he was being funny in this at all, or trying to be, or just like completely deadpan. I can't read him at all. I've seen him in plenty of videos. This is a slight tangent, but do you remember when the summit had like the vote your team in thing, like like a redemption vote for some team that didn't make it through qualifiers? G made a video for Virtus Pro, and it was, and I was voting for them. It was awful. Like the video was truly terrible. Like, I don't no shot. G is an amazing Dota player, but his acting not great. So I can't tell. But anyways, so in the post game interview, first of all, he gets asked like what how they won, anything like that. We're just picking some heroes and playing some Dota. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It worked today. And Casey says, in a big way. And G goes, probably.
Nice.
Really? And the second one was, Casey asked, are you feeling a sense of relief, or are you already looking ahead to your match against LGD? And he's like, he mentioned something about LGD, and then he picks up and says, but yeah, it's nice to be here to give an interview to you. I was watching you all these years, and I couldn't give an interview to you because I suck ass. And now I can win. So now I can talk to you, and it's nice. I feel like I'm a special person now.
Love it, man.
And he says this all like completely straight faced, and I just have no idea what's going through his brain.
G was one of the few CIS players who would actually spoke English, and you could talk to sometimes his English talent. And I do remember he had sort of an understated sense of humor, and he was always very cool. And the fact that he's like a good looking guy, and I remember he had some hot cosplayer girlfriend or something, and so like he always looked cool like from that perspective, but he was also like attitude wise, like he was just very chill and relaxed, and kind of similar to Zai in that regard, in just like the very chillax attitude, but still has some low-key spice that you're just not expecting sometimes.
Well, so your vote is he knew what he was saying.
Yes, I think he knew what he was saying.
Okay, all right.
Sure.
Right, and like Zai, gets funnier because of your low expectations.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I had one that was like very surprising to me, which was after game 1. So Secret wins pretty handily, and there's just a quick shot of Kuro, who's looking very confident and just casually like refastening his belt as though his belt had gotten too tight during the game. He's like, oh, all right, game's over, got to put my belt back on. So I enjoyed that one. But the obvious answer for funniest moment, I think this was game 2. This is the middle.
Yes, it's a Storm Spirit game.
Yeah, right.
It's coming in because you have just what Blitz says, but I actually have what Cap said.
Yeah. All right. So lead us off. What did Cap say?
I gotta look it up here. So they pick Storm Spirit, and you say something along the lines of, and thank goodness we have Blitz here, because Blitz specializes in heroes such as Storm Spirit, and Storm Spirit. And then Blitz responds. Lorton, go ahead.
Sure. So yeah, Blitz pauses for a second. Of course, you guys are mic'd up to the entire arena. He's like, yeah, I was gonna say something mean, but your mom's here. And then the whole crowd's like, oh. And Blitz is like, no. That's not something you say oh after. I was trying to be nice. Anyway, that was the funniest moment of the entire series.
So that's a pretty good example of like me. Like I want to start off the cast in a kind of, I don't want to put too much pressure on it, right? I want us to start off just like kind of fun. We had this very intense game 2, and the adrenaline's been going. So let's just, because Dota was very slow in the laning phase, so it was really hard to be like, welcome back, blah, 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 blah. Here it is, game 3, everybody, and into the laning phase we go, where people are hitting creeps, and there's some poor offlaner against 3 heroes. There wasn't those exciting kind of moments. Now we have like smokes into first bloods and stuff, and so you can hype it up a little bit more. So I just kind of threw Blitz like the thing I could always trust Blitz in just throwing him any kind of light jab, and he would always come back. He's very clever in that regard. And so my comment is not that clever, but I know he's going to have something good to say that'll make and I actually remember that moment. And I remember thinking like, damn it, Blitz, you don't have to worry about my mom. Like you're just supposed to hit me with it, that was the point. But then it turns out, better than expected. So
sure. Really.
Yes. All right, amazing. I think we should start to wind this down. I was curious about some a what if here, and the first what if on my mind is obviously, what if Secret banned Drow in game 3? And before you stop and say, well, I mean, they banned PL, and PL was a much more favored hero by VP in this tournament, I'm going to stop you right there and remind you that Secret banned Drow in game 2.
And Merlini, I think it was Merlini even suggested it during the draft, being like, Drow seems like a decent ban.
Well, I mean, I guarantee they did not forget about it, but they banned Drow. Let's say that VP does pick PL in game 3. Is that worse for Secret? I feel like it's better.
For Secret?
Yeah. This is all my perspective is well known on this, Aden.
I honestly don't know.
It looks like a good PL game.
Yeah.
But that was the old PL, right? Where it was more of your illusions lasted forever.
Right.
You were split pushing a lot.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of good mana to burn, especially they had already revealed Quap and Shadow Fiend as the 1 and 2 positions there.
But isn't this the classic example of it's a good PL game based on who he's against, but Drow synergizes with it's like picking for your team versus picking against your opponents.
Yeah.
Isn't it like, I mean, does PL really synergize with Storm Spirit?
I mean, it turned out to be a great Drow game, and Illidan played it really well, I thought. I mean, he had some clutch gusts.
Yeah. And be fair, I mean, and to make it even more contrast, like this is the same first 4 picks. Right?
Yeah, for VP.
So it was literally the same. They've done the same bin.
Mm-hmm.
let's ask a bigger picture. What if here? Let's say that. So let's say Secret wins. How does do they have a? And at this point, they've already lost. They got 2-0'd by eHome in the upper bracket. Do you think they would have? That could have like been the start of their run to, or do you think they to the championship, or do you think they run into LGD or Vici or whoever in the lower bracket and get beat down?
Yeah, I mean, this Secret was really, really good, and they got bopped out by eHome with the double gyrocopter pick. So I could see them being it's like one of those things, right? It happened recently. OG seed beat EG. Like that's really hype. But would the OG seed versus shit, who did they face? I forgot.
I don't know.
Like
Fnatic?
EG. Yeah, Fnatic, thank you. EG would have taken a game off of them, right? Like for sure. EG would have been a better opponent against Fnatic. So I think Secret would have been a better opponent against LGD. They had a better chance there. And then, from there, I mean, you get that kind of confidence. You mentioned Avicii Gaming, their lineups or their style is going to be pretty similar. Then you match up against EG. If you beat Avicii Gaming, well, you already have have had EG's number the entire year. Next thing you know, you're in the finals against CDEC, and two captains as smart as Kuro and Puppy are probably going to figure out the same thing Puppy did, which is that Chica doesn't play Leshrac.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. All
Yes,
right, so
3 captains.
that's true. So then the third question I have here, and this, so all the reports after the tournament, you don't have to confirm or deny this, were that Kuro and Arteezy did not get along. I think that was pretty publicly revealed.
Right.
If they win TI, is there any chance they stick together?
No. Well, like maybe they stick together for a little while into the next season. Maybe even they go to the next TI. But Kuro was always going to leave Puppy and create his own thing. I think Kuro has always had that drive to lead a team, to build something greater than himself. If you've talked to Kuro for any longer than 5 minutes, there is a certain kind of intensity. Very, very chill guy. Like as he said, he was the calmest motherfucker in the world right there.
Yeah.
But there is that underlying level of intensity that he will do what he says. He will get done what he wants to get done. And you could just kind of feel that from him. So I think they were always destined to break up at some point.
All right. Cap, did the better team win? VP versus Secret.
Well, I guess I kind of already said that, in that I think Secret would have been better matched up against LGD. But I mean, he was the one who won the game in the clutch moments, right? It was a back and forth game, and VP proved to be the better team fighters, and that's what VP really excelled at, was being able to team fight people.
Yeah. Yep. Aden, did the better team win?
If it was happening again, I mean, I think it depends on whether Puppy gets a little less stubborn about drafting.
S4 was drafted, although I mean, you have to assume Puppy had a strong voice in there.
Oh, I guess you would remember that, wouldn't you?
It was that back in those days. You could see the Dota 2 interface. You could see the little icon.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
That was one thing I enjoyed about the old school broadcast. All right, closing thoughts. What did you learn from rewatching this, Aden?
I think the biggest thing I learned, and this may be controversial, and this may be again a hindsight thing or like that. I think Cap alluded to this earlier. I think Dota players that we were still somewhat in our infancy of like Dota. Like I feel like between this TI5 and TI7, Dota like got much. Pro teams got better. It felt like they were still missing things here. They weren't playing as fast as they could. And maybe I'll look back and say TI7 they weren't playing that well now, but it's definitely felt like if we were to put back who's the best teams right now, EG of 20 into, or IG or Vici or whoever, or even this version of Secret back then, they would beat them.
I agree.
But I don't know if that's biased or not.
No, I agree with you, and I think part of the story there is, I mean, it is exactly what Cap was alluding to with Kuro needing to form his own team, like kind of in his own image. And what did we learn from TI7 True Sight, TI8 True Sight, TI9 True Sight? It's the vibe on your team and like the feeling of confidence and safety in the room is more important than the level of individual talent. The level of individual talent has to be high enough. But I mean, this iteration of Team Secret, TI5 Secret, might have been more individually talented than those TI winners later on. But those TI winning teams later on had a much better vibe about them, and everybody felt a lot better being part of those teams. I think that's a critical learning I bet Kuro had right then and there.
I agree.
Same goes with Arteezy. I hear Arteezy. Remember, I talked to him, and when we had the interview with him for the podcast, I remember he said that there was like a lot of things that he would. I mean, he dodged the question, and he did the whole like, well, if I went back in time, like, et cetera, like part of it. All of that made me who I am now. But I think there was some things that he regrets and learned from this TI5 secret run.
Sure. I was just saying to a friend not too long ago, I'm so glad that there was a lot less social media when I was 19 years old, because I was an asshole when I was 19, and I'm so glad there's a very limited digital record of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Cap, we're about to get you out of here. We're going to play a very quick game. The point of this game is to get to know you a little better as a person. So I'm going to ask you a question and give you some multiple choice Dota spells, and if I left the best one off the list, you can feel free to add it. So when you meet a new person, you're shaking their hand. Is it like your hand is enfeebled? Do you have a chilling touch? Do you have a geomagnetic grip? Or are you going to overpower the other person?
I definitely go for the grip. I like a strong handshake. I don't like to play the like, oh, I could squeeze harder than you game. Like, I don't like that. That's stupid, masculine, like just trying to showboat. But I do like a firm grip. So geomagnetic grip sounds good to me.
Love it. When you get angry, is it like scorched earth? Are you given a sinister gaze? Or do you go global silence? Credit to Lyrical for that one.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm whatever the most explosive spell is. It builds up. I'm a pretty chill guy, but
Unrefined Fire Blast?
Yeah, that actually is a pretty good it's a pretty good one.
All right. If you drink alcohol, when you drink alcohol, what do you like to drink? Do you go for liquid fire? Do you go for an unstable concoction? Or do you sip from the paralyzing cask?
There's got to be a good one in here for me. There's got to be some sort of water waveform or something.
Oh,
I
nice.
don't drink.
Nice.
I don't drink. So something that is water is what I need.
Aiden, do you have an answer to this one?
I mean, I also know I don't.
No, that's why I'm asking you.
I mean, I would have just been like what's the skill where like you could like when originally shrines came out, they like would refill your bottle
I think it's
once or something like that. Restoration.
Yeah, maybe not. Anyway, all right. It's gonna take a turn here, Cap. Just warning you. How do you help your partner achieve orgasm? Do you employ a magic missile? Do you use tricks of the trade? Or do you just rely on heavenly grace?
Definitely not heavenly grace.
That was in there as a trap for Slacks, but he did not take it.
Shit, I'm trying to think of like. For some reason, I was like, "What's the name of Pugna's ultimate? Life Drain." I'm like, "Oh wait, that doesn't sound quite right."
Can it be the opposite version of it when he's like doing it to an ally, right?
Yeah. Like when you do it to an ally, I'm very generous.
There you go. I like that. All right, last one. When you fart, is it like a poof? Is it like a corrosive haze? Is it like a chaotic offering, or is it the Thunder God's wrath?
It's corrosive haze.
Yep.
Though the Thunder God's wrath, I mean, sometimes it gets loud.
All right, Cap, we have very much enjoyed having you on the show. This is our last question, and I'm going to give it to both of you. It's from alert listener Camouflage. Would you rather fight a bear-sized duck or 3 duck-sized bears? While you're thinking about that, I'm going to remind our listeners that if you want to get in on our next Dota Rewatchables, join our Discord. You can find the link at glimpsepod.com. Remember to follow Cap on Twitter at Dota Capitalist and listen to the Side Pull podcast. Follow Aden on Twitter at OmegaManDota. You can follow me on Twitter at Shark Butler. Special thanks, of course, to audio engineer Jason Bates, and you can find his portfolio if you want to hire him for some real shit at batesound.com. All right, Cap, would you rather fight a bear-sized duck or 3 duck-sized bears?
Ducks are really mean. It's easily 3 duck-sized bears because in a fight, size is probably the most important factor.
I totally agree. I feel like there's a problem with the premise of this question, which is that 3 ducks are nowhere near as big as a bear, right?
Yeah.
If it's like 50 ducks, like it feels like it's just not proportional. You got to get at least the equal amounts of mass in each.
Yeah, isn't the usual question like 100?
I feel like
of small things.
I feel like that would be closer.
Yeah. In which case, I would probably still take the smaller thing.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, the only pause that gives me, assuming it's a lot of small bears, is that ducks don't have anything sharp. They don't have claws or sharp teeth.
Their beaks the beak is going to be freaking massive. You have a bear-sized duck. Its beak is going to be like 2 feet long and rock hard.
Yeah, it's definitely just gonna go through your skull. Ducks and geese and just general fowl. They are not nice.
Fowl are foul
creatures. Yes.
All right, sign us off.
Until next time, this is Aden Richards. Back you go.